Hi guys, hello. So my name is Rahul Barnwal, and what I'm here is to discuss the important Excel functions that we are going to use in financial modeling in our upcoming classes. So the objective of this class is not to learn advanced Excel functions, to be honest. This class is not meant for that. This class is basically, you can consider this to be an introductory class to financial modeling, right? Wherein at the end of this class, what I'm going to discuss is how do you build a three statement basic model, right? Not and how do you start, right? How the structure will look like, just the basics, right? But more or less, the structure of this class will be on based on important Excel function that we are going to use on financial modeling, right? Okay, so I think without wasting any time, let's start off with. So I'm just going to show what are the important Excel functions that we are going to use. Okay, so if you can see basically, I have just listed 5 functions on the list. That is VLOOKUP, index match, offset, if and nested if, SUMIF and SUMIFs. I'm not saying these are the exhaustive, this is an exhaustive list, meaning there isn't any other Excel function that we are not going to use in financial modeling. No, there may be few more Excel function that we are going to use. But what I'm here is to discuss an important Excel functions that we will be using them while building a model, right? Okay, so how we are going to go about this class is we'll go first discuss the theoretics behind that. So say, for example, what is the definition of what is the use of that function, the syntax. By syntax, I basically mean the formula, how we have formulas in maths, simple, how we are going to have formula in Excel, how to use this functions to get the required output, basically, right? Okay, let's start off with the VLOOKUP. It stands for vertical lookup. It this function helps to pull value, right? Vertically, right from top to bottom, based on a lookup value or input that you decide, right? So say, for example, there is a data set, right? Uh, which has, say, for example, few companies, right? And for those few companies data are revenue, net income, market cap, total debt, uh, number of employees, could be anything, right? I want to fetch a specific data point for the lookup value that I'll decide. Simple, right? So it looks top to bottom, column wise, right? It doesn't go from row wise like this, right? And then for that we use H lookup. So why have I not listed H lookup over here? Because to be honest, index match will help in satisfying both. So rather than knowing VLOOKUP and H lookups separately, we can simply use index match. That we'll discuss later, right? But there is no harm in knowing VLOOKUP because in Excel, there is no particular way of doing there's no one particular way of doing, accomplishing a task, right? There could be many ways, right? So to be honest, I am going to discuss 2 or 3 ways, but there may be many which you will come to know when you become an expert in Excel, or when you gain knowledge or get accustomed to the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, fine. So first I'll discuss the theoretics, then the practical example in Excel, right? Okay, so I think let's start off with VLOOKUP. And as I told, VLOOKUP, vertical lookup, pull data value vertically from a data set based on an input, right? What is the syntax? There are 4 parameters in the formula of VLOOKUP. And just deviating from the slightly, in an interview, we generally ask people, for freshers or be it experienced people, like, do you know the syntax for VLOOKUP? people say very confidently, yeah, I know VLOOKUP completely, and I'm completely used to it. I apply it on a day-to-day basis. But then when we ask what is the syntax of VLOOKUP, trust me, even experienced person aren't able to tell it correctly. That's a fact. Because what do people do is basically I think they memorize things either, right? And they don't do things intuitively. So when you do things based on intuition, right, you don't have to memorize. But when you have to memorize, and when you stop using that particular thing for some time, it will fade, right? Okay, now let's not waste any more time and get back to the sheet. Okay, 4 parameters: lookup value, table array, column index, true and false. Okay, let's go one by one, little slowly. Lookup value is basically the value for which you want to find data. You can consider this to be an input value, right? Table array would be the total data set from which you want to find the data for that input, right? This table array will comprise of the input that you will be selecting, this lookup value. Okay, column index, number of columns, or basically the output column, I should say, output column. Yes, let's just remember like this now, output column. True and false. False is also equals to 0. You can put either ways. True, you can also put as 1. What is the use of this? False stands for exact match. True stands for approximate match. I think just remember, right, like this now, when we'll discuss the practical example, you'll understand better. Fine. So let's go to the next page. Okay. So here I have created a screenshot from Excel basically, and I have marked the parameters that we're going to use in the formula, so that when after the class, when you start revising, when you start recapitulating what we discussed today, right, it will be much easier for you to apply the formula at your end, right? Okay. So I think first let's go to the Excel sheet, right? I'll just zoom a bit. Okay, now same example that I was just discussing a little earlier. These are all, for example, companies. These are the data points for those companies. I have just taken revenue, net income, and market cap. Just that. Okay. What I need is, I need to have revenue, net income, and market cap of company 3, but I don't want to look at manually, because manual task attracts a lot of error. It involves it can have a lot of processing error basically, because in real world, you won't be having data for such small data set, right? Data set can be huge, right? And doing multiple things, and to be honest, just doing things manually will be a challenge, as plus it may involve errors, right? Okay, so I have already applied the formula, but let's remove this and let's apply it again, so that you can also get a feel of how to apply the formula when you will be applying it on your own. Okay, equals to VLOOKUP, lookup value. What I told about lookup value is basically the input. What is the input over here? I need data for company 3. So what is my data, or what is my input? Company 3. Okay, let's freeze it. I'll come to this is called absolute referencing. Okay, I'll discuss what do we mean by freezing of a cell if you are not aware of. But let's apply the formula for now. Okay, comma, table array. Table array would be the entire data set. Again, freeze it, comma. So as you can see, while I'm applying the parameters, the ones that are already done gets unhighlighted, and the one that needs to be put in or captured gets highlighted. Like for example, now it's column index number. Okay. So column index number, as I told you, what is this? Output column. What, as you can see from roughly from the data set, what is my output column? Is this one, correct? So what is the number of column? What is the number of this column from the input column? What is my input column? This one. And how, and the revenue and the output column is this one. So how many column it's away from the input column? Just one. So I'll put it one. Okay. Now I'll put it, it's asking for either put in a true or a false, which is again 0 or 1. I'll put in 0 right now, which is false. Bracket close, enter. So what I have made a mistake, it's not 1, it's basically 2. Okay. So for company 3, what is my revenue? Is 120. Okay. Now, similarly, I need to fetch data for net income as well as for market cap. But before that, let's discuss what do I mean by freezing? Why did I freeze? First, how did I freeze? Once you type the cell, you can press F4, right? So say for example, if I just click on this, it's not freeze right now, but when you press F4, right, it's freezed. Then if I select the data set, it's not freezed, but when you freeze it, you have to press F4, done. Now 2, 0, it's done. Okay, now let's discuss true or false, basically 0 and 1. Exact match means the formula, the Excel will give you the exact match. So say for example, if it's company 3, here it will go for search for company 3, and for the output column, it will give you the data point. But if it isn't able to find company 3 in this column, right, it will throw an error. So say for example, I changed from company to the company 31. This is an error. So Excel could not find company 3 in this data set, right? Hence, it throws in an error, right? Now, what if I change from 0 to 1 for true on approximate match? As you can see, the error has been removed, right? But it hasn't given me 120, it has given me 110 because company 2 right now is the closest to company 3. Because I think what Excel is doing, it is playing by digits. So like for example, 2 is very closest to 3, right? So that is why it has given me that data point, right? 99% of the time, I will suggest use 1, or sorry, use 0, which is an exact match. Don't use an approximate match, right? So I'll just change from company 31 to company 3, right? And I'll put a 0 now. Okay. Now, freezing means we learned how did we freeze, but why do we freeze? Let's discuss. When you have to apply a formula in multiple cells, and you are aware of that, the data set will not change. So say for example, if I ask you in this formula, if I need to pull net income and market cap for company 3, what are the things in this formula that should not change? Do you think this would be one? If you're thinking that, you're correct, because the input is this one only, right? For which we need to find revenue, net income, and market cap, right? Second, this data, this one, yes, because I need to, this is the data set from which we can find all these data points applying the same formula, right? Column index, yes, this would change because I don't need to find revenue only. I need to find net income, which is in the third column. I need to find market cap, which is in the fourth column. Okay. So now let's apply the formula. So as I discussed, what I need to change, only this. So I'll apply 3 and it worked, right? This and this. Again, Control C, Control V. What I need to change, 4. And it should work. It worked, right? So you can see it's same. Now, let's go back to theoretics and discuss this part. So as I told you, when you are revising this class, this theoretical word or SMAT, I should say, will be very helpful to you, as I have noted down the parameters for the same data set so that you can be aware that what each particular parameters in the syntax mean. So like, for example, this was my lookup value. This was my table array. This is my column index. And as I told you, for true and false, you're aware of this now. Correct? Okay. I think that is all for VLOOKUP, right? Let's switch to the next formula, which is index match. Okay. And index match, it's a combination of two formulas, match and index. But when it is applied together, it works amazing, right? It becomes an amazing formula and becomes so helpful. You'll get to know when we already when we'll discuss in our upcoming classes in more when we are doing projections or when we are preparing a summary tab, right? But or perhaps even DCF tab, right? But right now, just remember this is an important formula, and you should be very comfortable in using this formula rather than all, I should say all of these formulas which I have currently listed today. Okay. So before moving to Excel, let's go back to Word and let's discuss the theoretics first, right? Okay. So I'll give you the definition first for both match and index, then the syntax, then the practical example. Okay. Match gives you the position of a cell in a particular data set. It will not give you the value. So say, for example, just imagine a data set like this, or we can refer to this as well. Company 1, company 2, company 3, like this till company 16. I want to know where does company 3 falls in this data set. Position, not the value, just the position. So I'll select this and it will give me 3 because you're seeing this, right? 1, 2, and 3, correct? But this again, this we are doing it manually. In real world, we are not going to do it manually. In corporate environment, even a minute saved is a minute earned, right? Because I have around 6.5 years of corporate experience, based on which I will just share my experience. Clients are very, very particular about the time that you will put in for completing a project, right? because ultimately they will have to pay. They are paying for the project, right? And we all are aware that it's really difficult to pick up or pull out money from someone's pocket, right? So that is why if you, even if you're saving a minute for a particular project, it's a lot. Trust me, it's a lot. Okay. So again, coming to match. So what is the syntax of match? Same, almost similar, just having one less parameter. Lookup value, which is the input value, right? Data set, right? That you, from the data set that you, from which you want to find the position of that particular lookup value. Again, final is true or false, exact or approximate match. Okay, let's discuss match first. A practical example basically, right? So I have applied an index match over here, but before that, let's discuss match only. Equals to match, lookup value, this, lookup array, this, 0 for exact match. We all are aware of what the result would be. It should be 3, correct? Right? So sometimes I'll give an example where match is used. When you're trying to find, so say for example, I'm sharing one more example. Uh, you have a big data set, right? Uh, I'll say an input raw data set that you have, and you want to put it or mold it in a client's format in another tab, right? Then all the data from the raw tab needs to be put in the client tab, but in a specific format. Okay, so you have done that, but you think that you are not sure that all the data from the input tab, raw data tab, has flown to the output tab, client tab. So you can use match function to check whether for individual entities. So say for example, like company 1 or company 2, you can check, has all these individual data points flown into the output tab? Just think about it. Just try to imagine this. We'll discuss again when we're discussing in modeling classes, when we're actually building a model. So over there, we'll be putting a summary tab. We'll be preparing a summary tab, and over there we can use this. You can have this situation, and we'll test it using match. Okay, fine. This is all about match. Let's come to index. Index gives you the value when you define the positions to the Excel. Okay. Match gives you the position of that value in a data set. Index gives you the value based on how we define positions to the Excel. Right? What is the syntax of index? Index range, match 1 formula, match 2 formula. I'll come to this. Let's discuss the pattern example first. So again, same thing what we discussed in VLOOKUP. Now we have to apply on index match. We have to pull revenue, net income, and market cap of company 3 based on this data set. But I don't want to use VLOOKUP. I want to use index match. Fine. Let's apply the formula. Index. The array would be this. I'm freezing it. Because I will be using the same data set for all these remaining two parameters. Now, it's asking for row number. Instead of row number, we'll use match. Now, what is we want to pull? We want to pull revenue for company 3, right? So this is row, this is column. So if I use currently specifying the row number, so in that case, I'll first find out where this particular lookup value falls in this data set. Okay, I'll freeze this one as well. I'll put a 0 to close this match. Okay, this was row. Now it's asking for column. Column goes from left to right, right? So again, use a match for this. My lookup value would be this, because I need to find revenue. Then I need to select the data set, which is this, freeze it, 0, bracket close. This bracket has been closed for match, and then the final bracket would be for the index. Okay. So let's revise this formula once again, because I know it's a little perhaps not difficult, I would say, but it will take some time for you to digest, right? Let's discuss once again. So to be honest, I may go a little slow. Some of you may find that I'm going a little slow, but the objective of this class is not only for people who knows a lot about Excel and everything, but it's also for people who may not be very good in Excel, who just know know about what is Excel, a spreadsheet, but wants to know more about it, right? So even though this is not an advanced Excel class, but this will be helpful for those who wants to do modeling and wants to know this formula, right? Okay. Index range. This should be simple. Match. Match basically tells you the position of a cell. So the actual syntax for index was array, which is this, row number, which is this one, and for column number, we have used this match. Okay. What would happen if this match would have applied here, like column number and row number from here? It would have been interchanged. This would not work. Because the Excel has put in the syntax in such a way, we have to put in the formula also in that way so that the formula works for us. Okay. So again, so for instead of row number, we are specifying a match function. So row goes from top to bottom. And what data lies in this are the company names. So that is why I have applied this to be the lookup value, right? So once you applied the match function, let's go for the column number. So even for column number, we have applied lookup value, but for this, it will be data set of this. So that means my lookup value would be revenue, right? Okay, some of you may even face problems while closing the bracket. Like if we are putting multiple formulas in a combination of formulas in a particular cell, right? So what the issue that we face, or few of them faces, is they're unable to know, okay, so how many brackets should I put in? Will this one would do? Will there be two? Or how should I know? Okay, it's very easy, to be honest. Just look at the colors. Excel gives you colors. So say, for example, if you see my first bracket has started with black, open bracket, right? So the match individually is in green brackets. So, right? So if you can see, this has an open, this has a close. this has a open, this has a close. So what is pending is the close bracket for this black one. So that is why I have put in this, and right. We may discuss more in our advanced Excel sessions, but for now, just try to be with this. Okay. Now let's copy this formula to here. It worked. Why it worked? Because I have freezed cells which is required. So if you freeze it, right? The cell that you want to, it will work like a dream. Okay. Same way, market cap, cool. It worked, right? So I think that's it for index match. So once again, I'll tell you this is the most important formula for compared to all the functions. So please make yourself comfortable. Just apply it 2 times, 3 times, and trust me, you will get comfortable on it. Okay. Now let's go to theoretics, Matt. So again, as I told you, I've made a screenshot where I have mentioned the important parameter that you should be putting it and defined it so that once recapitulating it at your end, you will not find it difficult. So say, for example, this is my index range, the entire data set. This is my first match lookup value. This is my first match range, right? This is my second match lookup value. This is my second match lookup range. I hope this should be helpful, but let me know in case you have any comments or any suggestion for me, right? Okay, let's get on to the next formula, which is if and nested if. Okay, if and nested if. By the term if, it means a condition. If XYZ happens, then what? If XYZ doesn't happen, then what? Right? So if you have remembered this crux, trust me, you have understood the syntax. Okay, so let's get to the syntax. If the first parameter in the syntax is condition, what is the condition that you want the Excel to perform, right? The second and third parameter is very simple. Value if this condition is true, value if this condition is false, right? So if this condition is true, what should the Excel display? If this condition is false, what should the Excel display? Right? Okay. If means only one condition. If you have a single condition, you will just use one if. But if there are many conditions, then you will apply multiple ifs, and that is called nested ifs. Earlier in Excel versions, I think the maximum ifs that could be applied was 7. But I think nowadays, the latest Excel version, like 2016 and Office 365, I think you can use more than that as well. Right? But generally 3 or 4 is the maximum that a person uses. I have personally used, right? Not more than that. Okay. Let's know one more thing. If the value, this particular true and false value, if they are in they are quantitative, like for example, 2 or 3, 0, 1, something like this, then it's fine. You can put it like that. But if it's a text based on characters, say for example, this should be pass, this should be fail, this should be yes, or this should be no, right? In that case, it has to be put in double quotes. I repeat, when your true and false value is characters based or text, then you have to put it in quotes. Next, there are some logical operators which you'll have to use sometimes along with if, which are and, or, not. I haven't listed not over here because, to be honest, I have never used not in my day-to-day life in my corporate life. What I have used and I have used or, but not. Okay. So I'm not discussing not over here. I'm just discussing and or. Okay. When you have multiple conditions and all of them needs to be satisfied, then you will put an and. But if you have more than one condition and either of them needs to be satisfied, then you will put an or, right? Now, let's get back to the Excel and discuss an example. Say, for example, I have few students' name. I do consider myself as a student, so I put in my name, Deepak and Mohan, right? I have listed few subjects on which they have scored, how they have scored, right? First discuss a simple if condition, right? So what is the condition? I have put in a condition where if a person has scored more than 80, it should display good, otherwise bad. Simple. If a person has scored more than 80, it should display good, otherwise bad. Okay. So let's see the formula now. As I told you, the formula is very simple. First, you have to put in the condition. What is my condition? Is this cell has to be greater than this cell. Notice one thing now, before I move ahead. If you can see over here, it's written greater than 80, but if you see over here, it's only showing 80. Magic, right? No, it's not magic. There is something called customization of a particular cell, right? I have customized it in such a way that even if I write anything, it will always display greater than before that. Even I put my name, like for example, Rahul. So it will show greater than Rahul, right? So never go by the value that is displayed over here in a particular cell. Always see the value of that cell in this particular formula bar, so that you can get to know, okay, what is actually there in this cell and not by this, the spreadsheet. Okay, cool. So coming back to my previous example, so if a person has scored more than 80, it's good, otherwise bad. Now look at the true and false values. You can see they are in quotes, as I discussed some time back. So that is why they are working. If you remove the quotes, it will not work. Okay. So this guy, I haven't scored more than 80. Very bad. So it's still displaying bad. Same Deepak, but Mohan has scored more than 80. So it's good. Right? It's a simple if condition. Now, let's discuss if and function. Right? So what is the and condition now? The and condition is if a student has scored more than 80 in maths, more than 70 in English, and more than 80 in science, then only he should pass, otherwise not. I know it's considered this to be a hypothetical scenario, otherwise we would all have perhaps not passed in one go in our academics, right? But just, this is a hypothetical example, so bear with me. So again, how do I apply? If we'll start off with and. because we have many conditions and all of them needs to be satisfied. Cool. And this cell is greater than this. Again, this cell is greater than this. Again, this cell is greater than this. Bracket close. So now all the conditions are in this particular formula under and. So that means I'm giving Excel an instruction that please check whether all of these conditions are satisfied or not. Again, if not, then it should display pass or fail, right? Similarly, I've applied for other ones, right? Only Mohan passed because he has satisfied all criteria. Clear? Okay. Let's go to OR. So what was the objective of OR? If there is more than one condition and either of them is satisfied, not all of them, it could be one, two, or all of them, but either of them, if it's satisfied, then it should display pass, fail, right? So again, if a person has scored more than 60 or more than 50 or more than 70 in respective subjects, it should display pass. Now, how do I apply it? Almost the same thing, is just that instead of and, how we applied over here, we have to put an or. Just check it. Okay. So let's see, how did this guy pass? And why didn't this guy fail? Let's check this. Because he hasn't scored more than 60 in maths. He hasn't scored more than 50 in English. He hasn't scored more than 70 in science. That's why Deepak failed. Right? So again, now coming back to the theoretics, right? If and same thing, value if false, value if true, right? Condition, pass, fail, right? Okay, so this was all about if and nested if, right? So I think it should be clear. Let me know in case is there anything that any query that you have in your mind, or anything that you think we can do better on this one, right? Okay, let's get on to the second last function, which is, I would say, an easy one, but people make it complicated, right? Okay, which is offset. Offset helps you in the similar way as compared to VLOOKUP and index match, but it works differently, right? It can give you the same output, but the methodology of how the Excel performs this formula is different, right? So let's check it. What is the syntax? Offset reference value, rows, columns. Simple, that's it. Reference value, rows, and columns. Let's get to the practical example and let's see how it works. Okay, I'll just remove this again. You want to again know the revenue, net income, and market cap of company 3. Okay, but I don't want to use VLOOKUP. I don't want to use index match because I think I'm more comfortable with offset, and I think I should use that. So it's okay. Let's do it off with offset. Okay, offset. reference value, reference. Consider reference to be the starting point of your from where you want the Excel to start basically. How I remember this function is, consider offset, the entire offset function as a racetrack. Okay. My reference point would be the starting of the racetrack. So let's, for example, take this one. It could be anywhere. I have currently kept it here. Okay. Next is rows and column. As I told you, offset basically gives you the value based on the location that we give to Excel. Correct? Now, what are rows and column? What do you think from a data set where it needs to go? It needs to come down, as I can see, to company 3. Correct? Row wise. So how many rows it needs to come down? 1, 2, 3. Right? Then put it 3. Comma. Columns. Now the Excel, we have, this is the starting point of the racetrack. I have given 3. It has started coming down to 3. It has stopped now. What is the columns, number of columns that we want it to move from the reference point? We want to find revenue, right? Which is just 1 column away from this. So we'll just put it 1. And no height and width, we don't need to give that. Just close the bracket and that's it. Right? So I think you may be just thinking that, okay, why do we need to use an index match? We look up, they have so many parameters, so complicated. We can use offset all the time. You can use offset all the time, but the problem is index match will work in some instances where offset will not work so easily, right? So that is why I always suggest people to know multiple formulas so that you are aware of all those and you can perform all tasks based on the best formula that you can apply in a given situation. No client is going to ask you to put in a specific formula. He or she will tell you that I need to get this task done, not to get this through a specific formula. Right? Okay. So I'll just freeze this one because let me just keep this as the starting point. Okay. And even 3 would be fixed because it will be company 3 for all these remaining 2 as well. Right? So I'll just drag the formula here. So what I need to change here is just the column number, because from here it's the starting point, 3 down, it will be the same for all 3. But now the column is not 1, it is 2. Because 1, 2. So here I will put in 2. Right? Okay. Now next, similarly, I will not put in 2, I'll put in 3. So again, we have got the same result. Now we have got this same result using VLOOKUP, index match, and offset. Right? Know all these functions and trust me, it should work almost all the time, that whenever you have any situation in your day-to-day work. Right? Okay. Let's go to the mat. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. This is the reference point. Number of rows away from reference value, a number of columns away from reference value, so that you remember how did we apply the formula. Okay. You will be having this Excel as well, but just for sake, if you forget something like what is which is what, right? So you can just refer the mat in that case. Cool. Okay. Now, the last formula that I have for you for today is sum if and sum ifs. So as you see, or from the word sum if, sum ifs, right? It will add based on a condition. Sum if, it will add based on conditions, that is sum ifs, right? Okay. Now I have a data set basically, right? Uh, what I need to use, or what I need to have is, or no, I need to know, or what's the data set basically? The data set is basically there are few employees who have spent on a few types of expenses on a daily basis, right? What I need to know is, I need to know what for company three, or sorry, for employee three, right? How much he has spent on rent. That's it. How much employee three has spent on rent. So if you just see the data set, okay, I'll go, I think rent 50 plus 60, 110. Simple, right? But again, I'm repeating this. In real life, that you will not get such small data set. If I have to just specify the number of columns and rows in an Excel spreadsheet, right? It has 10 lakh 48,576 rows and 16,384 columns. Just imagine the data set if all of these cells are filled with data, right? So for this reason, it's better to use formulas, right? Now, for sum if and sum ifs, the syntax is just the reverse of syntax of sum if. Okay. So what is the syntax of sum if? The syntax of sum if is criteria range. Basically, the criteria range, just remember like this right now. Then the criteria, the condition, and then the sum range. Right? Now let's get back to Excel. Let's apply this. Sum if. This is the criteria range. What I need to find? I need to find rent. And this is my criteria. And where is this rent? In this column. So I'll select this as my criteria range. What is my criteria? Rent. What is my sum range? Sum range is basically the output range from which we want to see the output. So right in this case, we want to see rent for employee 3, which is this. So we'll apply this and enter, right? So it has added, so how Excel has worked basically, it has done one-to-one mapping. So we selected, it first took out, did a filter for rent. So it found two, right? Two parameters or two places. Then for employee 3, it just added those two particular cells and give the output. Right? Simple. Okay, now sum ifs. As I told you, the syntax of sum ifs is the opposite of sum if. So what is the syntax for sum if, as we discussed? This is the criteria range, this is the criteria, and this is the sum range. Right? Now, what is the syntax for sum ifs? Just see it. It starts with sum range, then criteria range, then criteria 1, criteria range 2, then criteria 2, and number of criteria that you want to put it in. During interviews, we always ask the syntax for sum ifs and sum ifs. If a person say that okay, he is really good in Excel and he's very comfortable in applying these all syntax. Okay, if you are that comfortable, can you please tell me the syntax for sum if and sum ifs? And there, that is where that person fumbles and makes a mistake, right? So again, so sum ifs, When do I use sum if? When I have more than one condition. I want to know how much employee 3 has spent on rent on day 3 only, not on any other day, only on day 3. That means you have two conditions now. Okay, so let's apply the formula. Sum range. As I told you, the reverse of sum if. Sum range is the sum output range. My output is this. Select it. Criteria range 1. So what is my first criteria? That it should be rent. So just select the criteria range 1. What is criteria? Rent. Next, second criteria. It should be day 3, not on any other day, but day 3. So just select criteria range 2 and then the criteria. Okay. What it has given me is employee 3, rent, day 3, only 60. Correct. Now let's go to the map. So I have even specified sum ifs. This would be my sum range. This is my criteria 1. This is criteria range 1. This is your criteria 2. This is your criteria range 2. Right? Okay. So with this, we have come to the end of the important Excel functions that I wanted to discuss that will be helpful for doing modeling classes going forward. Okay. Now, my second part of today's class would be introduction to a 3-statement model. So how the structure of the model looks like. I'm going to just share one model, which is not a complete model right now. It's a sketch, you can say, but I will just tell you the number of tabs it will have. A 3-statement model should have, right? Okay, let's get on with it. Okay, so as you can see, this is a model of Home Depot, which is a US company, right? US retail company, which is also known as HD. If you type the ticker of Home Depot, it's HD, right? Okay, so before this, an introduction to any model. A particular model may have 4 to 5 tabs. It may have 10 tabs. It may have just a single tab, right? It depends on a template to template basis, right? It doesn't mean that if I'm currently teaching you to build a model with 5 tabs, when you go to the industry, it will also have 5 tabs. But what it will help you is to understand the content of the model, right? A particular template may have content of 2 tabs in 1 tab. Similarly, a particular model may have content of 1 tab in 2 tabs, right? So you need to learn the content first. Segregation of that content in different tabs, that depends from model to model. Okay. Now, when you will be working for a captive company. By captive, basically, I mean companies who does research for their own, right, to invest. Companies such as JP Morgan, Barclays, Goldman Sachs, or Morgan Stanley, right, Edelweiss, Motilal Oswal, Crystal, right? They all do their own research, build models, right? So if you work for these companies, more or less, you will be having 1 or 2 templates to play around with. But if you go to work for a KPO industry, they work for clients and clients share templates with them. So in that case, you may work for many templates. So perhaps you may work for 4 clients or maybe having 4 templates, right? So don't go with a template, just go with the content. The content is a factor and it's important, but not the structure of the model, right? Okay. So in general, a 3 statement model basically means capturing IS, BS, and CF in a particular format and then projecting it for 5 or 10 years based on the format of the template, right? So what are the tabs that it should have? It should have an income statement tab. It should have a balance sheet tab. It should have a cash flow statement tab. It should have an assumption or drivers tab. If DCF is required, then perhaps a DCF tab, and if ratio analysis is required, then a ratio analysis tab, right? So in our next class, basically, what we're going to discuss is how to capture numbers from filings, right? And how to capture them in a specific format, right? And how to do GAAP, non-GAAP reconciliation, right? So this we will learn in our next class, right? Not today. So hope you have enjoyed this class. And in case of any suggestion or feedback that you like to give us, please feel free to do so. We are all are here to learn. We all are students of finance, and let's grow together, right? Let's learn and grow together. So with this, I thank you for giving your valuable time, and I'll see you in our next class. Take care.